Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are digging into one of the most powerful and honestly most contradictory figures in American history, John D. Rockefeller. This was a man who, it seems, lived two completely separate lives.
To a lot of people back then, especially to the incredible investigative journalist Ida Tarbell, Rockefeller was pretty much the ultimate supervillain. I mean, her expose on him was just devastating. She painted this picture of a cold, greedy monster, the absolute embodiment of corporate evil.
But then you had his defenders, and to them, all that criticism was just the kind of thing great men have to put up with. Their argument was that regular people were just jealous, that they couldn't possibly understand the genius behind what he was doing for the country.
So, which is it? Was he a ruthless tycoon or a groundbreaking philanthropist? Well, here's the fascinating part. He was 100% both. And what's even crazier is that the first version of him, the robber baron, is the very thing that made the second version, the philanthropist, even possible.
Okay, so first, let's talk about the Rockefeller that everybody was afraid of. The guy who built an empire so massive it controlled an entire industry and pretty much rewrote the rulebook for American capitalism.
Yeah, Standard Oil did not get to the top by playing nice. Rockefeller used what people called severe competitive practices to build his monopoly. We're talking about accusations of everything from systematically crushing any small competitor who got in his way to getting secret sweetheart deals from the railroads that basically choked out his rivals. And his lobbying game, it was so aggressive that one person called it the most brazen attempt in the history of lobbying.
In this quote right here, it just perfectly sums up how people felt. The critic Henry Demarest Lloyd was basically saying that Standard Oil's influence was so total. It didn't just influence the government, it was the government. This wasn't just business anymore. People saw it as a hostile takeover of democracy itself.
Okay, but just as the public anger against him was about to boil over, this whole other Rockefeller started to emerge. This was the guy who decided to give his fortune away, with the exact same ruthless efficiency he'd used to build it.
Now, what's so cool about this is how much it reflects his business brain. He wasn't interested in just handing out cash with temporary fixes. No, he wanted to solve problems at their root. He famously said he wouldn't put his money into a sinking ship, meaning he demanded the charities he supported be incredibly efficient. And get this, he was a pioneer of matching gifts. He'd use his own money to get other people to donate, basically multiplying his impact.
And he didn't just donate, he built institutions. In 1913, he started the Rockefeller Foundation with an initial gift of $100 million. I mean, you have to understand, that amount of money back then was just astronomical. It was philanthropy on a scale nobody had ever seen before.
But here's the twist. This incredible generosity kicked off a huge national debate. When Rockefeller gave $100 grand to a missionary group, this minister, Washington Gladden, publicly blew the whistle. He said the money was the fruit of a system of plunder. And he asked a question that echoed across the country. Can you use dirty money to do clean work?
And that question just ignited what became known as the tainted money debate. You had one side arguing, look, money is money. If you can use it to cure a disease or build a school, who cares where it came from? But the other side was saying, no way. If you accept that money, you're giving a moral thumbs up to the brutal way it was made.
So you've got this intense public backlash, and at the same time, all these massive social problems brewing in the industrial age. Rockefeller needed a new kind of answer, and he found one using the same kind of logic that made him rich.
For a guy who built an empire on efficiency, data, and control, the answer wasn't going to be just more charity. It was going to be science. He started to look at society not as a moral battleground, but as a giant, complex machine. A machine that could be studied, understood, and maybe even engineered.
And right there, Rockefeller becomes the main financial backer of this brand new field, modern social science. The whole goal was to create a body of hard facts and proven principles that could be used for what they actually called social control or social engineering.
And his money completely reshaped the academic world. He founded the very first sociology department in America at the University of Chicago. He paid for huge data-gathering projects like the Pittsburgh Survey to get a detailed snapshot of what modern life was actually like. He even helped create the Social Science Research Council to coordinate all this new research.
But this led to a totally new problem. By bankrolling the very creation of social knowledge, Rockefeller wasn't just a donor anymore. He was actively shaping how society understood itself. And that, of course, raised some really tough questions about power and freedom.
And this wasn't just some theoretical what-if. Look at the case of Professor Edward Bemis. He was an economist at the University of Chicago, the school Rockefeller basically built. Well, Bemis had the nerve to publicly criticize the exact kind of monopolies that made Rockefeller his fortune. And guess what happened? He was fired.
The public outcry was immediate and fierce. Newspapers all over the country saw this as the smoking gun. This quote says it all. His scalp now dangles at the breast of monopoly. To them, it was proof that Rockefeller's money wasn't a gift, it was a leash. Academic freedom was great, as long as you didn't bite the hand that feeds you.
And this leaves us with the big nagging question at the heart of Rockefeller's whole legacy. When immense private fortunes pay for the institutions that create public knowledge, who's really calling the shots? Who gets to decide what we study, what we question, and what we accept as truth? It's a question that started with Rockefeller, but in an age of tech billionaires and their powerful foundations, it's more relevant now than ever.